Orange County, California. Amazing individual. We were just chatting backstage, and Justin was just talking about residual income, and he was just sharing that his residual income this month was $27,000. That's a nice little chunk, right? But the thing that I most admire about the next speaker is that the guy is an amazing humanitarian. If you guys haven't noticed, like the people that have been up on stage are amazing individuals, and John is Pugh that's coming up is extremely special. He does a ton of charity work. I see him all over social media sharing his life and his philanthropy, not just locally, but around the entire world. I've seen him speak many times. So without further ado, let's bring John Pugh up and give him a round of applause.
Check. There we go. All right. That video is so good we had to roll it twice. Justin asked me if I wanted to speak in front of a couple of his friends. He sure knows how to make a chubby guy feel special. And look at the picture. That one's good. That one's from when I used to drink. We'll talk about that in a minute. All right. So I got a question for you guys to get started. And thank you for everybody who's still here and hasn't run away to take a nap yet. I really appreciate it. On a scale of 1 to 10, how honest can I be with you? I didn't hear that. How honest? A 10. I can be a 10 with you. Awesome. So let's do this really quick. Stand up. All right, cool. I want you to sit down if you've ever attempted suicide. I want you to sit down if you've ever contemplated suicide. I want you to sit down if you've ever struggled with depression. I want you to sit down if you've ever battled anxiety. I want you to sit down if you've ever been burnt out. And I want you to sit down if you've ever struggled with alcohol or drugs. Now, for the last handful of you, and I want you to look in this room because this is the theme of what's going on today. The handful of people who are still standing, please sit down if you have a family member or a loved one who has struggled with one of those things. Got you all. Right? Now, raise your hand if you believe in a higher power. If you believe in God, the universe, anything out there greater than ourselves right now? Yeah, pretty much the entire room, right? Me too. So I believe, I didn't know exactly what I was going to talk about when I came out here today. The reason I have my notes is I actually wrote most of this draft on the airplane over here. I didn't know that Wayne would talk about suicide, mental health. I didn't know that Dustin would share hitting rock bottom. I didn't know about all of that stuff. And a bunch of the speakers, we came in here last night at 1 a.m. We snuck in here and we were like, wow, that's a really big fucking room. And literally. And we were like, oh shit, should we write original content? Should we redo our stuff? Should we not duplicate what other people are talking about? And what became evident to me as I sat here today taking notes in the front row was that there is clearly a need for this audience to hear a very specific message. And that message has been a theme throughout all of these presentations, which is about self-improvement. When we were talking about our ahas, right, the one thing, what stood out to you today? My aha is that your self-development will always be either the limitation or the X factor in what you want, in your personal growth, in your ability to go get whatever you want, in your success, however you define that, right? That will always be based on your ability to be true to yourself, to conquer your fears, to face your demons, and to move forward. All right. So who the hell am I? That shit got real deep real quick, right? So I'm the little kid holding the balloons. The guy in the wheelchair, that was my dad. He wore masks before they were cool. He had a heart transplant when I was 10 years old. When I was 9 years old, I was told my dad was probably going to die. When I was 10 years old, I was told my dad was going to live, but then I was told he was only going to live for like another 5 years. And that really taught me one thing that was a huge gift, which is the value of time. And so I never took a single minute of my relationship with my dad for granted. And I never took a single minute of my life and the opportunity to live for granted. But that didn't always move forward in the most positive way. I was the guy over here that raised my hand and said I was the only person who knew at 4th grade that I wanted to be a real estate agent. The reason was because my dad, as a retirement career, became a real estate agent. He did that in retrospect because it was the thing that would allow him to still bring in money with the amount of energy that he had, and also be there for everything that I was going to do. So my dad drove me to school every morning. My dad picked me up from school most days. He made my lunches. He was the team photographer for my football team. I ended up getting 10 years with my dad, but I only thought I had 5. So every minute of that was really appreciated. I started passing out flyers on my rollerblades when I was about 11 years old. I got 10 cents a house, and then I hired my friends to do it for 5 cents a house. That was my first lemonade stand. And then when I was 18, I got licensed, and my parents didn't really have enough business to keep me busy. They had never really treated real estate like a career. They kind of treated it like what I just described. And so they kind of sold me to one of the agents in their office, and his business was just starting to take off. And together we built one of the top 10 businesses in the entire country in the middle of the Great Recession. That house you see there is Nicolas Cage's former estate. Sold it for $35 million. I made way too much money as a 20-something-year-old kid, much like Justin, much like many of the speakers. And then I went 18 months without selling a house. So you can imagine what it's like to make hundreds of thousands of dollars in your early 20s and then go 18 months. Did you think I saved for that? No. I bought $8,000 tickets to Europe, and by the time the trip came around, I didn't have money to pay for the hotels to go to Italy. It was pretty realistic. And I really got caught up in the Newport Beach lifestyle and real estate. It wasn't a healthy environment. It was pretty toxic. I started drinking. I wasn't really happy at work. Started going out to lunch. It was like an hour, then an hour and 15 minutes, then eventually like 3 hours, and we were doing like 10 tequila shots. It was pretty serious stuff. Justin jokes around his team, John, we're in your 20s, right? You think it's all fun and games? Oh, I'm just a young kid. I'm just out partying. It's just fun. Yeah, it didn't end up so fun. I went out on my own, and I wanted to work with people who appreciated me. So like I understood that this was toxic, and I moved on from that, and I started going on like a lot of walks with my dog and working from home. I realized that Newport Beach real estate wasn't really fulfilling for me. It was too transactional. It was just helping rich people exchange assets. And so I wanted to work with people who appreciated what I did and needed my help. And I did a lot of door knocking. And I would door knock with millionaire real estate agent in my ear. And I'd door knock for like 4 hours a day. And I'd do open houses. I'd do all this stuff these people talk to you about doing in a recession. And I had this idea that someday I wanted to do what I called ministry through realty. And I didn't know what that was going to look like. I didn't know how that was going to manifest. Eventually, I realized I didn't want to call my clients. Anybody don't want to call their clients? Does that ever happen? Anybody have team members who don't want to call their clients? That's more common, right? That happens all the time. This is a quote from my friend Jonathan White. This will make more sense later, but it says, as leaders, if we don't understand who we are, we'll never achieve our full potential. We'll always come up one swipe short. Does anyone here buy leads? Anybody buy Zillow leads or PPC leads or any kind of leads? Yeah, some people in the room. So what I'm about to tell you is you guys don't need to do that. That's 100% unnecessary. The reality is if you just follow Justin's very simple plan that he talked about, you have plenty of people that you already know that you can generate business from. Really quickly, if you buy a lead off of Zillow, who's the person who clicks the button on Zillow? The person who clicks the button on Zillow, I'll just tell you, is somebody who doesn't know a real estate agent. It means that their friends or family are not a real estate agent. It means that they don't have a real estate agent from wherever they just moved from. They basically live in a cave on Mars. And they're probably an asshole. And so even if you deliver 5-star service to the person who clicked the button on Zillow who got connected to you, guess who they're going to refer to you? More assholes. Yeah. So what I decided to do in order to not make my calls was I was volunteering with the Make-A-Wish Foundation. I was working on their Young Professionals organization. And I told my clients that I donated in 3 ways. I donated to the Make-A-Wish Foundation. I donated to KW Cares to support associates in need with our company. And then the third way was that I donated to a charity of the client's choice. And Lindsay, this one's for you. Until one day, I donated to a charity called the Golden Retrievers of the Rockies. And I thought to myself, is this really the impact that I'm looking to make? Right? I joined Keller Williams. I started building a team. I became a team leader. I ran an office. We all have the same scars. I can prove it to you. And that's jokes just way too familiar. Like, you guys all get that. And what I realized was I was doing all of that for my ego, right? I said yes to a lot of opportunities. I started building a team. I became a team leader. I did all that stuff because I wasn't living true to my core values. And ultimately, it was leading to a lot of disappointment and frustration and bad habits and anxiety and alcohol. I wasn't being authentic. So why am I going to talk to you about building a mission-driven business? So number one, the world needs more mission-driven leaders and followers, and it's okay for you to start today. So a lot of people need permission. They feel like they need permission. I know when I first got started, I had a friend named Sheena, and she was on like 3 nonprofits, and she was doing all this amazing work in the world. And I looked at her and I was like, holy shit, if I could just be like Sheena someday. She is Superwoman. She is on these nonprofits. She's helping people. She is so badass. And then what I realized is like, Sheena's just like everybody else. It's not that hard to be on the board of a nonprofit. You know how many people want to help, get involved with charities and do the work that nobody wants to do? Not that many. Except for the fact that Sheena took action. Taking action is a theme that I'm sure you've seen today, right? You can't just wish something would happen. You have to take action. The next is focus. I'm not here to give you one more thing. Lauren Taylor's going to talk to you about TikTok. You don't need one more thing. You need something that makes you more efficient, more effective, right? The mission can become the filter. The mission is what's going to allow your decision-making to become so simple and straightforward, right? You're going to easily be able to understand, does this action, does this thing on my calendar, does this moment get me closer to my mission, to my goal of raising $1 million for charity, right? That's my goal right now. To fundraise and donate $1 million to causes and charities that are important to me annually. Does this action get me close to that goal? That's why I'm on stage right now, because this does. The next is depth. Anybody here ever been like, what the fuck should I post on Facebook today? That ever crossed anybody's mind at like 6:45 in the morning, like you just peed, you haven't even brushed your teeth, and you're like, shit, I got to get a post out because I don't have a VA, and I don't have a fucking schedule, so I got to like think it up every morning, and that takes like 50% of my mental energy. Then I got to decide what shoes to wear. That takes the other 50%. Now I'm fucking done. I need a nap. Right? Anybody? Yeah. So guess what? When you do the work that has no end, you create content that has no end. And not only do you create content that has no end, you create conversations that have no end. The next is leadership. People want to believe in something greater than themselves. They want to follow something they believe in, right? When you get clear on who you are and you stand for something greater than yourself, you will give people a clear reason to follow you, to champion you, to cheer for you. Anybody here ever like followed somebody on social media and they're documenting their journey, whether it be a marathon they're training for or a weight loss journey or anything they've ever been striving for? You ever seen somebody like that on social media? And you like watch it and then you buy in and you become like their greatest cheerleader? Yeah, that's just fucking humans, guys. We just want to cheer for people. We want to see people succeed. I believe people are good, right? Give people a cause that they can rally behind. That's leadership. Fulfillment. Happiness comes from what we do. Fulfillment comes from why we do it. So this goes back to the golden retrievers of the Rockies. If you gave away $1 million, but you gave $1 to 1 million people, would you have made an impact? This is a quote from my friend David Hoffman. And I think the answer, maybe in the Philippines, but like the answer really is no, not a substantial one. I was a team leader. I was doing some really good work. We granted wishes to Make-A-Wish Foundation kids. And every single morning before I went to work, I was like this. But I wasn't on my knees praying to God. I was praying sometimes. But usually I was crouched over the toilet, throwing up, miserable. Because I was so sick and anxious about going to work that day. Because I was so outside of my core values, because I was doing things on a daily basis that were not in alignment with who I knew I was as a person, that even though I was doing things like helping people and granting wishes and all of this amazing stuff, I was still super miserable inside. I was making more money than I'd ever made. I joined a country club. I was drinking, golfing all the time, making tons of money. I was doing good, right? And one day, it was my friend Keith, who was on my team at the time, and he called me out. Keith was like, John, I don't respect this behavior. Now, I was over at my market center leading that, and Keith was over at the other market center that Meyer ran, and he was, selling houses on my team. And Keith was like, dude, this just isn't cool. And you know what I said to Keith? I said, fuck you. Keith was the kind of guy that would leave work early to go pick up his kids. Those are his kids. Keith was the kind of guy who would show up late. He would always have excuses. Keith was never going to sell more than 2 houses a month unless he got his shit together and stopped being such a bitch. Now, does anybody have a team member like Keith? Anybody who's just like not getting it? They're not working hard enough. They're not hustling. They're not selling enough houses. They won't hit a breakthrough. Like we had like an average sales, like per agent, we're selling 20 homes. Keith is selling 2 houses a month. That's satisfactory, right? I'm like, fuck you, Keith. You don't matter. Right? So I just continued doing what I was doing, not listening to the warning signs. Right? Who here feels like they have untapped potential? Yeah, I believe all of you have untapped potential. So if you didn't raise your hand, you're just lazy. Who here is editing their posts to fit the narrative they think somebody wants to see? Who here is putting on a mask in the morning? I gotta tell you, that shit is too fucking hard. You need to get up every morning and be yourself. And I'm gonna give you permission right now to stop doing that. Live authentically. Be who you really are. Stop faking it. Stop putting on a mask for social media for yourself. Now, it's okay to keep some things private. That is your right. But do not change your narrative to fit what you think someone else wants you to be. It's exhausting. And so, at the time, as much as I wanted to quit every single day, I wouldn't allow myself to quit that job because I was stuck. I had increased my financial thermostat to the new level of income that I was making. So I would lose my house or my car or my money, my country club, all this crap that I didn't need. That was what I continued to torture myself every day over. And I was caught up in the money and the lifestyle and the bullshit. And Keith was always leaving early to go play rec league soccer too. He coached his kids' soccer teams. Like this guy, he had his priorities all wrong. And then one day while he was playing rec league soccer, Keith had a brain aneurysm and he died on the field. And when I went to his funeral, Meyer and I, we went, it was on a weekend, and it was in an industrial area. And so there should have been parking everywhere. And I had to park like 6 blocks away and walk. And when I got there, there was a line wrapped around the building. It looked like a Justin Bieber concert. And this is the only room I've ever spoken in that's big enough to tell you that the room we walked into was the size of this room. And this room was fucking packed, wall to wall with people. You couldn't walk down the aisle. That's how many people were in this room. For Keith, this guy that wasn't even selling 2 houses. And not only were there people wall to wall in this room for this man who had died, but it was almost all children. It was kids and teenagers and young adults, and there were balloons and banners and posters. And in that moment, I changed every goal I ever had. Because I realized that Keith wasn't leaving the important work at the office to do the unimportant work in the community. He was leaving the unimportant work at the office to do what really mattered. To build a community, to give back. And so, I took a stand. I finally stood up for my core values. I put my ownership group in a position where they had no choice but to fire me. That wasn't fun for my ego. I took a massive income hit. I lost about 50% of my income. I switched market centers. I became a coach. I went into hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt. I made a ton of improvement, but guess what I also did? I kept drinking. Because I was using drinking as medicine to cope with the severe anxiety that I was dealing with while I was struggling between basically being 2 people. See, half of me was out here doing self-improvement and good works and charity, and the other half of me was over here struggling every day to find authenticity, how to be without a mask, struggling with my time and my friends. I was still associating with people that I shouldn't have been associating with. You guys know what a switch cost is? It's when you start calling your database and then your wife walks in the room and starts talking to you and then you have to get back on the phone and it's just any time you're distracted between two different things. Even computers do this. Multitasking is a myth. So anytime you have a switch cost, your productivity goes way down. It drops under 50%. And so because I was living this duality, this switch cost of a life, my own productivity was constantly below grade. It was a double-edged sword. My impact, my goals, my breakthroughs, my significance, my influence, everything I was capable of was being stunted due to my lack of an authentic mission. We hear be do have a lot. We'll get back to that. Here we go. I prefer to look at it as become, take action, and receive. I think it's a little more digestible. First, you must become that person in your mind. What kind of person am I? Am I the type of person who eats this kind of food or that kind of food? Am I the type of person who makes these kinds of decisions or those kinds of decisions? You have to decide that for yourself in your mind first. You become that person the minute you make that decision. You may not get a six-pack that minute, but you become that person when you make that decision. Then you must take action. Every single speaker here has told you nothing will happen if you do not take action. And only when you become that person in your mind and take the actions that person takes, will you receive what that person has. Now, along the way, I formed this really cool group called the Messy Middle Mastermind. We started doing charity work. We raised $5,000 for amputee blade runners. We raised $22,000 for COVID relief, $15,000 for clean water, children with muscular dystrophy, all kinds of different causes. Again, I was doing all these awesome things, but I still wasn't fully being my authentic self. And I was still drinking. And so I plugged on. I was the number one team leader in the region. I was anxious. I felt like a fraud. That's before I quit. Then I ended up in the hospital. I was supposed to go to Maggie Camp, a conference like this, and 2 days before, I think I was a little nervous about going on the plane and being in front of all these people and not being my authentic self and seeing all the people that I had been around when I was team leader, now that I had gotten fired and I wasn't team leader. You guys can understand that? And so I woke up one day in extreme pain, and I had really bad pancreatitis as a result of drinking too much. And so I had to tell everybody, hey, I can't make it to the conference because I'm in the hospital. That wasn't fun. And then I decided that I would plan this amazing event. And I hosted this event in Nashville, and it was supposed to be my idea of an unconference. I was sick of going to the same bullshit real estate conferences, and I planned my own event. And I stopped drinking for a month in order to do that. I knew that it was so significant that I had no choice but to put myself in the optimal position to be able to pull this off. And at this, we did our largest fundraiser ever. We raised $37,000 in about 10 minutes in a room of 50 people to build 4 wells in Africa and bring clean water to over 8,000 people. Those pictures are the first children to drink clean water out of that well. And that felt pretty damn good. And so you know what I did next? I drank for an entire month straight, that's right. And it was somewhere in between that event and that drinking that I reached out to somebody online and said, hey, I think it's pretty cool that you've been sober for a year, or whatever it was at the time. And these are my text messages. And you can see that I said I've been suicidal this year, been in therapy. I didn't have a plan, but I hated myself so much that I genuinely believed that the world would be better if I wasn't in it. And this person was extremely vulnerable with me. They told me about their own struggles and some of the things that they had gone through and the fact that they had been drinking and had actually, almost attempted suicide themselves. And it gave me the courage to think about stopping drinking. And you can see here on the middle slide at the top, it says, Happy Thanksgiving, how many days? And that was in November. And in December, right, I didn't respond at all. So what had happened is I had tried to do it, right? I had been like, that's a really good idea. And this person was like, don't drink. And I was like, I won't drink. And then I got really drunk. And I was so ashamed when I was asked how many days, but I didn't even respond. And then I woke up the day after Thanksgiving so hungover and hating myself that I decided, fuck it. I might as well give it a try. And at the bottom, on December 29th, you can see I said I was 30 days sober. And today, thank you. Today, I am 903 days without a drop of alcohol. Along the way, I fired my friends. Every single one of my friends that did not align with my core values was out of my life. Some of these are my best friends, people I hang out with every single day. Gone. Never spoke to them again. I stopped drinking. I switched companies. Why? Why such a radical change? Because I wanted a faster vehicle to achieve my mission. I chose who I was. That become part that I talk about, I decided who I was going to become. And now I had to do the work. I had to take action. I knew that nothing would change unless I changed, unless I made the action happen. And so I used my mission, which evolved over time. So the number one question I get when I talk about building a mission-driven business is, where the hell do I start? John, I want to do good in the world. Where should I start? Here's what I'm here to tell you. You just fucking start. Just do it. Just get involved. Because the things you think you're passionate about, the things you think that you want to get involved in are not the things that you actually will get involved in. They're not your authentic mission. But you will not figure it out sitting in that seat. The only way you will figure it out is by getting into action. So I joined EXP and I set this crazy goal. I said, I want to build the group with the most heart. That was cute. Oh, I want to build the group with the most heart. I was like, all these fuckers are talking about stock and revenue share and money, and they're all heartless bitches, and I don't want to do that. I want to build the group with the most heart. Come join me! Nobody cared. But it allowed me to be loud. It allowed me to build relationships, to differentiate myself against the bad reputation. Can I let you guys in on a little secret? Real estate agents, especially EXP ones, they're kind of hated. People don't like real estate agents, and people don't really like EXP. It's starting to change, but really, real estate agents are genuinely hated. And then COVID happened right after. I was newly sober. I was at a new company with new friends, a new mission. And I wanted to do this COVID relief aid thing in the middle here. So the $22,000, I hit up every single person in my upline. Every single person in my upline, by the way, is a millionaire. I asked them for $5 for clean water. I said, $5 will give a kid during the middle of COVID in the poorest slums in Kenya. Will you give me $5 or more? I hit them all up for money. Do you know what they all told me? They all told me no. Every single one of them. Not a single person donated a penny. Yeah, I was pretty devastated. And that's the part I probably should have gone back to drinking. But I didn't. I pressed on, right? I continued to follow my mission, to follow my values, even though no one was supporting me. No one was listening to me. And then I was offered an opportunity. I was offered the opportunity to speak at Sprint. You notice that slide? And it was my first opportunity to speak on a big stage, and I got amazing feedback. And it gave me what I needed to continue to press on with my mission. And I started to add more people to my revenue share group. And I got to teach in EXP World. And I taught on building a mission-driven business. Which, by the way, there's an hour and a half talk on this. If you guys want it, just hit me up. There's a slide for contact info here. I'll give it to you. You guys can hear the entire speech. I was the first presenter to ever get all 10s on their feedback score. And that was literally all that happened in 2 full years. I added like a handful of people. I didn't really make that much money. I spoke digitally in EXP World. I spoke on one small stage in front of like 65 people. And that was it. And then we hosted our second Messy Middle retreat. That was this one in November. Justin was our sponsor. Justin is an amazing human being. Don't let him fool you. Justin helped us raise $75,000 in a very short amount of time. That little girl had been sex trafficked. That little boy is crying to his mom because the Americans are leaving in Mexico or building houses in Mexico. They eat trash. They live in the dump. And that little boy was crying, and the guy comforting him was actually one of the kids who used to be in his position. And he told the little boy, he said, I know I used to be like you, and I used to cry when the Americans would leave. And I would lay on the ground, and I would look up at the sky, and I would watch for the airplanes for when they would leave, and then I would watch for when they would come back. And so in about 5 minutes, we raised $75,000. Natalie wrote a message here about the kind work that we do and what an impact it makes on the world. These are the posts that got shared. So when you give people an opportunity to get involved, because that's all people want to do. Have you ever tried to volunteer at a soup kitchen before? It's actually really hard. And if you put a pencil down in the path of somebody wanting to do good in the world, they won't step over the pencil. So just remove the pencil. Because when you give people an opportunity to get involved, like we're going to do with all of you, this is what they post about. This is how they share. So I don't need to read your Google reviews and your Yelp reviews and your Zillow reviews to know that your reviews fucking suck. Because you know what your reviews say? Your reviews say, oh, they did their job. They're a great negotiator. They handled all the details. That's your fucking job. What if your reviews said, this person is changing the world? What if the reason they referred you was because you are doing such good work in the world and in the community that they had no choice but to tell their friends and family to use you? Back to what I said earlier, assholes only refer other assholes. You become not a real estate agent, you become a superhero. This is how you get never-ending referrals. Then I was offered the opportunity to kick off Sprint and speak with Elizabeth Riley. That was pretty incredible. That was my next big opportunity. I had people like Glenn Sanford and Jason Gessing come up to me and say that I inspired them. That was pretty wonderful. And then Kyle Whistle hit me up. You can see the Christmas tree. And he said, hey man, you're pretty rad. Will you come down to San Diego and talk in front of our team? Will you present? And I want to see, I need an impactful speaker. Will you come present? And so I didn't tell him I was going to do it, but we ended up raising $20,000 in about 5 minutes in that room. And we did it for a cause called Feeding America. And then I was on a snowboarding trip with my family, and Kyle texted me and said, hey man, that was pretty cool what we did in San Diego. Do you want to come back to San Diego and do it in front of our entire Fast Forward Movement family? And so we got 200 people in the room. The average GCI in that room was $1 million. And the audience, the people you are speaking to, will always dictate your results. Whether it be in sales, or fundraising, or anything, the people you are in front of will always dictate your results. And so I stood there in my pink shorts in a room of 200 people, and when I was done speaking, we had raised $75,000 for Feeding America. Kyle's goal was $100,000 over the next 24 hours. I knew we were going to blow past this goal. We raised $235,000 to feed 2.3 million families in America. Most recently, it was the 2 million meals. I was nominated and was awarded the Success 125 Award for my work in philanthropy, which is really just a representation of what I've been able to do with the amazing people that I'm blessed to be in charge of and involved with and lead, just like yourselves. We hosted a digital event just 2 weeks ago online, raised about $50,000 for a team member of ours who's battling brain cancer. Lindsay, thank you for your participation. Elias, Lauren. And I got 2 very significant donations to kick it off. I got huge donations from 2 of my upline. The same guys who wouldn't give me $5 for the wells in Africa gave me thousands of dollars for this event. The same guys who wouldn't give me $5 for water in Africa let me speak on this stage in order to help them raise $235,000. It took me 2.5 years, but I finally changed their mind and their mindset. I finally got them to buy in. And so a friend of mine said, does it need to be on your P&L? You want to raise $1 million a year? Does it have to be on your P&L? I was like, what do you mean? He said, do you have to account for it? And I said, no, of course I don't. I just want to do good in the world. And so I know that I have raised over $1 million annually. Because every time I speak in front of a room like this, I have the opportunity to drop a pebble in the pond and allow those ripples to reach each and every one of your hearts. And if you take this message back with you to your community and your team, and you decide that you're willing to take one step forward into action towards your authentic mission and just begin to figure it out, then you can put one more pebble in the pond, and together we can all change the world. But not if you don't take action. Not if you don't keep going when you're turned down. When this doesn't get you a client right away, will you quit? When the impact meter on your own giving P&L looks puny and insignificant, will you push on? I've saved lives from alcohol, helped marriages, rescued kids from sex trafficking, built wells in Africa, kids with muscular dystrophy, you name it. How do you get started? You just get started. So here's what I'm going to tell you. The next opportunity you get, the very next time you have an opportunity to get involved and take action and donate, fundraise, in any way contribute to the positive lives of other people, I need you to take it. Will you promise me you'll take it? The earnings, the energy, the genius of this room, we will hands down, it should be the biggest crowdfunding charity effort of my entire life. Want to be fun to find out? So I'm not going to do a live donation right now. We're going to save that special surprise for a later date. But even if it doesn't end up on your P&L, even if it just happens behind the scenes, I want you guys to take action. I want you to get involved. Because this is now our story. So what will you do with it? Will you pick up the story here? Will you drop another pebble in the pond? Will you differentiate yourself? Will you allow this moment to spark and uplift you to the next level that you've been striving for? Will you push to live up to your full potential? None of this will matter if you don't take action. But worse, if you don't strive to find your authentic self and then allow that authentic self to find your authentic mission, if your core values do not align with the good works, then it will not matter, and you will be miserable. So I want to leave you with this. For this is not an easy path to follow, but a significant one never is. Why do I leave my family? Why do I keep persisting even when I'm told no? Why do I travel the country and host events? Put myself out there? Because I believe you're worth it. Even if it doesn't end up on my P&L, you're worth it.
And so anywhere we went, we stood out like a big, gigantic sore thumb, right? And we ended up at this thing called Maria's Big House of Hope, which was founded by Show Hope here in Middle Tennessee. And it's a medical care center for sick kiddos, for sick orphans. And we thought it'd be a really good chance for our girls to get to experience and hold babies and really kind of get their eyes open to this other side of life. And we go in, and we met Leah, who I showed you her picture earlier. And if you couldn't tell from looking at the picture, if you weren't here yesterday, Leah was very sick. She had 4 major heart defects. Her oxygen saturation was around 60%. She had a couple of syndromes. She was profoundly deaf. She was in failure to thrive. The list can go on and on. And Riley, who at the time was 7, I believe, 7 or 8, fell in love with Leah immediately. And Riley pushed and pushed and pushed. The rest of it, we have to adopt Leah. We have to adopt Leah. She had different names at the time, obviously, but we have to adopt her. We have to adopt her. I'm like, hold on, time out. We just adopted 2 kids. We're broke. We just took 5 people to China. Like 5 kids to China. We're out. Right? And the last night in China, Riley looks at me. She says, "Can we adopt her?" And I said, "No, Riley." I said, "She doesn't have a chance." And Riley looks at me and she said, "You better try." And walked off. And so we tried, and we had the path paved, and we got to adopt her. And she came home, and she lived with us for about 4.5 months. She survived open heart surgery, 23 days in intensive care, et cetera, et cetera. She got to come home. And then in January of 2016, we woke up. A big snowstorm in Middle Tennessee was about 10 inches. So I know for some of y'all that's comical, but 10 inches shuts down Middle Tennessee. And she was in cardiac arrest, and we couldn't get to the children's hospital. She passed away. And I remember asking, our minister showed up. I remember asking him, I said, how do I tell my children this? How do I tell the other children? He said, you go home and you tell them the truth. You don't tell them anything else. He said, but the one thing I want to tell you is I want you to be ready for their reaction. Some of them will be very sad. Some of them may just blow it off. Some of them may want to go eat. He said, and that's okay. Everybody handles it differently. And I said, okay, I got it. And so I came home and we sat all the kids down and we told them. Leah died. And about 10 minutes into that, and they're all sad and they're all crying, etc. And Riley looks up and she goes, hey, Dad. And I said, yeah. And she goes, she was worth it. The reason I share that story is because that is now my purpose. She was worth it. And you're worth it. And your team's worth it. And the people who may not look like they're worth it. But as leaders, if we don't understand who we are, we will never achieve our full potential. We will always come up one swipe short.
You're worth it. Thank you, guys. Thank you.